Let's be real. Most businesses treat IT as an expense and they only want to deal with it when something breaks. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through how to set up an IT budget for your business that keeps your business running smoothly, but saves you from unexpected and unnecessary emergencies. Good IT means you have a set budget. Bad IT means your budget never gets respected. Whenever we have an expense, we try to minimize the cost of that expense to the greatest of our ability. So when it comes to IT, if we view IT as a cost center, we're going to try to spend as little as we can on IT. When we do that, we often get what we pay for, which means we get very little when it comes to IT. Not having proper IT budget can manifest itself in a bunch of really bad ways. It can be poor productivity for your users. It can be poor productivity for an entire department. It can be poor communication. It could be poor experience for your clients. Most important, or most scarily, it could also be increased risks of cybersecurity attacks. If you don't properly budget for IT, and if you view IT as a cost center, if you view IT as an expense, it can manifest itself in a bunch of really bad ways that you could simply avoid just by allocating the proper amount to your IT spend. In the past, and it's still common with certain vendors, you usually set your budgets based on your revenue. So maybe for payroll, you set your budget for the payroll department at X% of revenue. That works okay for a lot of departments, but for IT specifically, you want to set your budget based on your employee size, based on the headcount of your company, and then attach a number to that. So X amount of dollars per year per employee. And the reason you want to do that based on the employee size, not based on revenue, is because revenue per employee can vary dramatically. So you might have a business doing a ton of revenue, but you also need a ton of employees. You might have a business that's doing a medium amount of revenue, but you have like a very small amount of employees. When you go based on revenue, it doesn't give you a holistic picture of something that you can accurately hinge your IT spend off of. So I think it's important to do IT budgeting based off of headcount and not revenue, because in and of itself, revenue per employee changes a lot. So when you go off headcount, you have a more holistic picture of the actual needs of your organization when it comes to IT specifically. So IT costs in and of themselves usually always circulate around the number of users. So for example, Microsoft 365, those costs are always billed per user. In fact, most of the tools that a business uses now are based off of a per user count. So again, going off revenue doesn't give you that accurate, holistic picture of the needs of your organization when it comes to IT. Think about it, just managing a team of 5 people is a lot different than managing a team of 50 people versus a team of 500 people. You need to have different things in place to manage each of those team sizes, and it is always going to be more work to manage a team of 500 people than it is to manage a team of 5 people. And that can be extrapolated out almost identically into IT. So if you have an IT department and that IT department is managing a company that has 50 users, they have about 50 users worth of work. But if you have an IT department that's managing 500 users, it's not just a 10x increase in headcount, it's probably a 15 to 20x increase in IT efforts. So when we talk about IT budgeting based off the headcount of an organization, it's easiest to equate that spend to amount of money per employee per year. This is kind of funny. There's actually something called the IT poverty line, which is like the bare minimum, least you'd ever want to spend on an employee, and that's $3,000 per year. So that's $3,000 per employee per year is the absolute bare minimum that you'd ever want to consider spending on IT. Now that we know what the IT poverty line is, we know where to stay away from. And I can tell you, based off the trends in the industry, the best companies in the world spend anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per employee per year. So as you're laying out your IT budget, there's a lot of things that you need to consider. And I can give you a quick list of some of the biggest ones. Number one is your IT payroll. So this is money. So this is payroll for IT staff. So your help desk staff, your system administrators, your network administrators, all the way up to C-suite level staff, even your CIOs or your director of ITs. You have to account for their salaries. And of course, if they're W-2 employees, you have to account for their benefits, vacation time, sick days, all that stuff has to be wrapped up into that. You also need to account for your licenses. So pretty much everything costs money these days. doesn't change when it comes to IT. So licenses for Microsoft 365, licenses for email security, licenses for your print software, licenses for communication tools like Slack, licenses for phone service. The list just goes on and on and on. There are so many licenses that you have to pay for. You also need to account for your hardware costs, the cost of servers, the cost of networking equipment, the cost of new laptops and desktops for users. Those can really add up quickly. Certain industries also require certain certifications. If your business needs to be SOC 2 compliant, there are real costs to that you need to consider and add into your IT budget. If your company is wondering if its current IT budget is working, if its current IT budget is enough, here are some questions to ask yourself. Whether you have an internal person or you use another IT provider outside of your business, ask yourself these questions right now. Number one, do I experience any downtime? That could be as simple as this printer's offline and we can't send a fax, to my entire network is down and no one can send an email. Have you experienced any security breaches? If the answer to that is yes in the past 10 years, then you do have a problem. Those are not normal and you should not have them at all. If you're experiencing productivity losses that manifest itself in any way that could be addressed by IT, this could be as simple as a user can't get their password reset and then therefore they can't do their job, to something more complicated like the organization itself cannot communicate internally efficiently because they don't have something like Slack or Teams. If you keep seeing unplanned costs pop up, random repair bills, random hardware bills, random projects that cost $50,000, and you're just like, how is this even possible? That is not normal, and you should not be experiencing that. And lastly, if you're in an industry that requires some sort of compliance like SOC 2 or HIPAA, and you're not really even quite sure if you have that handled, again, that is not normal, and that is something that your IT service provider or your internal IT person should be able to cover for you. If any of these things aren't happening, again, it is cause for concern, and you should look into these issues in greater detail.